Dad's secret life. The shocking truth that shattered our family. My daughter Sophie came tearing into the house one late afternoon, a whirlwind of tears and panic. They took everything. She shrieked, still halfway through the doorway, clutching her backpack like it was the only thing she had left in the world. I stood up from the kitchen table, instantly on edge, my heart pounding in my chest. Sophie, what do you mean? Who took what? Her voice trembled as she choked out. They took everything from Grandpa's house. It's all gone. Trying to make sense of her frantic words, I pushed. Wait, slow down. What do you mean it's all gone? What happened? Sophie dropped her backpack and wiped her face with her sleeve, her eyes wide with disbelief. I backed to my grandpa's house on the way home from school. I saw the door was open, so I went inside. Mom, everything was gone. Everything. It's all gone. I saw Aunt Lydia driving away with a truck full of boxes. I felt my chest constrict, a wave of cold dread washing over me. My father's house. How could they? Why would they just go into his house without telling me? This was his legacy, our family's last vestige of shared memories. They didn't tell me they were going there today. I managed, my voice coming out more quietly than I intended, the words barely audible. Sophie's hands were still trembling as she whispered, I didn't know what to do. It just looked so wrong. My husband, Mark, walked in, taking one look at our faces and frowning. What's going on? Is everything okay? Still trying to piece together my thoughts, I stammered. Mark, something's happened at my dad's house. Sophie says Ron and Lydia took everything. Took everything, without saying anything to us. The initial wave of shock was beginning to morph into a burning anger. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter and quickly dialed Ron's number. It rang once, then twice, each ring amplifying the fury building inside me. I tried again, my jaw clenched, but still nothing. Let's go over there, Mark said, already heading towards the door, his eyes blazing with fury. We'll find out what's going on ourselves. I was fuming as we drove over, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel, my thoughts like a tangled web. My mind raced through all the possibilities, trying to make sense of my brother's actions. What would possess my brother and his wife to empty out Dad's house without a word to me? We had all agreed to go through his things together, piece by piece, when we were ready. The thought of them taking it all, as if it were theirs alone to claim, made my blood boil. Sophie sat in the back seat, her eyes still wide with shock. Mom, do you think they're trying to keep everything? She asked. I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady as I responded. I don't know, sweetheart, but we're about to find out. When we pulled up to my dad's house, my stomach dropped. The house looked bare, like it had been stripped of its soul. There were no cars in the driveway, no sign of Ron or Lydia. The front door was slightly ajar. It felt like a violation. Something sacred had been disturbed. Mark and I stepped out of the car, his fist clenched as he glanced at me. This doesn't feel right, he muttered. I didn't respond. I was too busy walking toward the house, my legs shaking slightly beneath me. I pushed open the door, and Sophie hadn't been exaggerating. The living room was completely empty. Not even a couch remained. I felt my knees weaken. Oh my God, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I can't believe this. I walked further into the house, the echo of my footsteps the only sound in the empty rooms. Each room was the same, empty, cold, stripped of every item that had made it feel like home. A surge of anger coursed through me. How could they have done this without even telling me? They took everything, I said. Mark came up behind me and said, we need answers, Audrey. We need to talk to Ron. I nodded silently, my heart pounding in my ears. I wasn't leaving until I got to the bottom of this. Back in the car, I called Ron again. Hey, Audrey, he said casually, as if nothing was wrong. I didn't waste any time. Ron, what the hell happened to Dad's house? There was a slight pause. Oh, you mean today? He responded. Of course, I mean today. I just went to the house, and it's completely empty. You took everything. Calm down, he said. We were just trying to help Lydia, and I thought it would be better to go ahead and start clearing things out. It's been 2 months, and nothing's been done. We figured you'd appreciate not having to deal with all of it. You figured I'd appreciate you going behind my back and taking everything out of Dad's house. You didn't even call me. Ron, you had no right to do this without me. My voice was rising, shaking with anger. I didn't think you'd mind, he said, his tone shifting slightly. We're all family. It's not like we're stealing anything. We just thought it was time to move on. And honestly, Lydia and I found something that made it necessary to clear things up quickly. What do you mean you found something? I demanded. Ron hesitated, and for the first time I could hear a shift in his tone, a tremor of something I couldn't quite place. We found some letters, some things about Dad that we didn't know, and I didn't want to upset you before I figured out what to do. I narrowed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Letters? What are you talking about? Look, it's complicated, he said. I can't explain it over the phone. You need to come over, and we'll talk about it. I was boiling with anger, but also a deep, foreboding dread. What the hell could these letters say that would justify this? I'll be there soon, I said, The words clipped. Mark gave me a questioning look. What did he say? He says they found something. Some letters. Something big. We're going over there, I said. The drive to Ron and Lydia's house felt longer than it actually was. Every mile was agony. What could be so important that they had to take everything from the house before telling me? What dark secrets had been hidden away? When we arrived, Ron was waiting for us on the front porch, his arms crossed, looking tense for the first time. I stepped out of the car and marched up to him. What's going on, Ron? What did you find? I want an explanation now. He sighed heavily and responded, I know this is a lot, but I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't want to hurt you. Find out what? I demanded, my patience completely gone. The words that came next hit me like a physical blow. As Ron blurted out, Dad had another family. I stood there, stunned and numb, my brain trying and failing to process what Ron had just said. Another family, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. We found letters, dozens of them, between Dad and a woman named Gloria. And there are photos, Audrey. Photos of Dad with the other kids. They were his too. My world started to spin. My niece felt like I missed all in the letters. We've been going through them. Dad had another family in Florida. He would visit them whenever he went on his business trips. He was living a double life. I felt like the world had stopped spinning. My father, a man I had loved and trusted implicitly, had been living a lie. My father, who'd always seemed so present and dependable. How could he have done that? How could he have lied to us all for so many years? I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or collapse right there on Ron's porch. You've got to be kidding me, I responded. I'm telling you because I had no choice, Ron said, his voice laced with a strange mix of guilt and desperation. We found the letters, we found photos, birthday cards, even plane tickets from all the times he went to visit them. It's all real, and it's all in those letters. I looked at Lydia, my throat tightening. You knew? I said, my voice shaking. You knew this whole time? She nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of pity and fear. We found them 2 weeks ago, when we started going through Dad's things. We didn't know what to make of it at first, but then it became clear that this was serious. You've been so stressed with everything else, Audrey. So, instead of telling me like a normal person, you decided to go behind my back, clean out the house, and what? Protect me from this, like I couldn't handle it. I screamed in fury. I was going to tell you. We needed to get everything in order first. Lydia responded, her voice quivering. In order? I snapped, my voice rising in disbelief. You're treating this like some sort of business deal. This isn't about things. Ron, and you just thought you could fix it by erasing everything. I was trying to protect you. Lydia screamed. Protect me? My voice cracked. You're just like him, hiding things because you think you know better. Mark placed his hand on my back, but I barely heard him. I want to see the letters. All of them, I demanded, my voice shaking. Ron swallowed hard and nodded. Come inside. The letters sat on the coffee table, mocking me with their silent testament to decades of deceit. The sight of them made my stomach churn. How many secrets could those thin sheets of paper hold? I sat down slowly, reaching for the top letter, my hands trembling. The handwriting was unmistakable. I recognized the familiar slant of his pen, the way he always started with the date in the top right corner. I read the first few lines, my heart sinking deeper with each word. My dearest Gloria. The word swam before my eyes. My dearest Gloria. He had never spoken to my mother that way. I continued reading, each sentence a fresh round. I think of you every day when I'm here with the other family. But please know my heart is always with you and the kids. I'll be down in Florida next month. Tell Tim and Rachel I miss them. I let the letter fall to my lap, unable to continue, bile burning in my throat. Tim and Rachel, my father's other children, my siblings, people I didn't know existed. I struggled to breath, trying to steady myself. How long did this go on? I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. The earliest letter we found was from the late 70s, and the most recent was just a few years ago. Ron responded quietly. He lied to us for 40 years. I said, my voice barely a breath. Lydia reached out hesitantly, as if to comfort me, but I recalled, my heart breaking. Mark sat beside me, putting a hand on my knee. Audrey, we'll figure this out, he said. How do you figure out that your father wasn't the man you thought he was? How do you come to terms with a betrayal so deep it feels like your entire life was built on a lie? I needed to be alone. I need a minute, I said, standing up quickly. I pushed past them, my heart pounding, a tsunami of sadness crashing over me like waves. How could Dad have done this to us? How could he have lived two separate lives with so much ease? The door creaked open behind me. Please, Audrey, let's talk, Ron said softly. How long were you going to keep this from me? I asked, my voice thick with tears. I swear, I was just trying to figure it out. I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't think maybe I deserved to know right away, but I should have been the first person you told. I responded, my voice breaking. I thought we were in this together. He nodded, guilt flooding his expression. I'm sorry, I screwed up, he said. Yeah, you did, I said bitterly, turning away from him. We stood there in silence, or what felt like fervor. Finally, I heard him sigh deeply. "There's more," he said quietly. I spun around, my mind reeling. "What do you mean there's more?" I stammered. He hesitated, his eyes downcast. "So, what? They're going to come after us?" I demanded. Ron shook his head, his jaw clenched. "I don't know, and they're going to find out one way or another." I felt my breath catch in my throat. These weren't just letters from the past. They were living, breathing people who shared my blood, people I'd never even known existed. "They don't know yet?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, feeling a sudden chill. Ron admitted, "I haven't contacted them." "I'm going to," he responded. I stared at him, my mind racing. "And then what?" He shrugged helplessly. "Then we figure out what happens next." The next few days were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief, and a strange, unwelcome curiosity about these unknown siblings. As I tried to go about my life, the weight of the secret hung over everything. I couldn't shake the image of those letters, the other life he had lived so easily alongside us. A week later, Ron called me again. "I've talked to them," he said. "Tim and Rachel." I sat down heavily, bracing myself for whatever was to come. "They want to meet." The day of the meeting, I was a wreck. I didn't know what to expect. Did they resent me? Did they feel like I had stolen something from them, just as I felt they had for me? What kind of people were they? What did that mean to them? The questions buzzed in my head non-stop. We met at a small restaurant halfway between Florida and our home, and when I walked in with Mark, I spotted them right away, a man and a woman sitting at a corner table, both in their 50s, both bearing a faint resemblance to my father. Tim stood as we approached, his expression guarded. Rachel, on the other hand, gave me a tentative smile, though her eyes were filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. "Hi," I said awkwardly, feeling completely out of place. "What do you say to people who are both strangers and family?" "Hi," Rachel said softly, standing up to shake my hand. Tim hesitated, but finally followed suit. I didn't know where to start. "I'm sorry," I blurted out, the words tumbling out of my mouth. I didn't know about you." Tim's jaw tightened, and he glanced at Rachel before speaking. "Neither did we," he responded, his voice cold. "We thought we were the only ones. We thought we were his only family." "I know," I said, my voice shaky. "I know what that feels like." Rachel looked down at her hands and said, It's hard to wrap my head around it. You know, all these years, we thought he was just busy with work." I nodded grimly. I didn't realize he had another life. He was good at keeping secrets, I guess," Tim said, a bit edge to his voice. "Yeah, he was," Rachel muttered. "But I guess that's what happens when you're living a lie. You get really good at it." His words hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. "We're not here to cause trouble," Rachel said quickly. We need to understand. We need to know who he was to you. And I guess we want to know why." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. This was a conversation I never thought I'd have in a million years. "I wish I had answers for you," I said, my voice cracking. "I wish I could tell you why he did what he did. But I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know." Tim leaned forward, his eyes searching my face. "He was our father too, you know. He missed a lot with us. All those trips, all those excuses about work." He trailed off. "We didn't know it was because he was with you," Rachel said. "The accusation stung, but I knew it was deserved. I didn't know he was doing that," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know he had another family. I grew up thinking he was just my dad. He was always so careful with what he told us. We never questioned his trips." "I'm sorry, Tim," I responded. "I'm so sorry." Rachel reached across the table and placed her hand on mine, her touch surprisingly gentle. "It's just hard," she said softly. "I don't even know how to begin to process all of this. The letters, the photos. It's like I've been hit with a tidal wave, and I'm just trying to stay afloat." Tim clenched his jaw, his knuckles white. Did you love him?" The question took me off guard. "Of course," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He was my dad. I loved him with everything I had. I just can't reconcile." "I mean, didn't you ever wonder why he was gone so much?" Rachel's question cut deep, my eyes stinging. "I did. But he always had a reason. He was good at making it seem like it was normal, like it was just part of his job. I trusted him. He missed my wedding, you know, said he had to work emergency, and I guess now I know where he really was. My heart broke for her." "I'm sorry," I said again, feeling like it was all I could offer. The damage had been done decades ago, long before any of us had a clue. "Look, I know this is a mess," Mark said, interjecting. "But Audrey didn't know. None of us did." "I get it," Tim said, sighing. "I do, but it's hard." "Yeah," Mark agreed. "It's hard for all of us." As the conversation continued, the initial tension began to ease. Rachel shared stories about their childhood, about the times Dad had come to visit them, about the same habit of making pancakes on Sunday mornings. It was surreal, like hearing a mere image of my own memories. "I always thought we were special," Rachel said with a sad smile. "But now I see he just split himself between us. It wasn't about being special, it was about keeping a lie alive. I didn't know what to say to that, ever suspected it ever existed, and now we were left to pick up the pieces of a shattered legacy. Eventually, the conversation turned to practical matters. It was uncomfortable, but it had to be done. Tim crossed his arms, clearly still uneasy about the whole situation. So, what now? How do we handle this legally? I mean, I've been looking into it and the house. We don't want to fight, Rachel said quickly. We just want what's fair. I nodded, agreeing. We don't want to fight either. We'll split things evenly. That's what Dad would have wanted. Tim looked at me, his expression softening just a little. Do you really think that he would have wanted it to be fair? I hesitated, unsure. I don't know, I answered honestly. I don't know what he wanted anymore, but it's what I think is right. Rachel gave me a small smile, and Tim finally relaxed, nodding in agreement. We'll do it that way. It wasn't a perfect solution. Nothing about this situation was perfect. But it was a start. It was a way to move forward, even if we were all still reeling from the betrayal. Over the next few months, we worked through the painful process of dividing up Dad's estate. It was exhausting, emotionally and physically, but somehow we managed. Tim remained distant, his anger simmering just below the surface. But Rachel and I grew closer, sharing stories and memories of our lives in such different ways. One day, Rachel called me out of the blue. Audrey, I was thinking if you want to come to Florida. I mean, I want you to see where we grew up and I feel like maybe it would help. I was hesitant at first. The idea of visiting a place where Dad had spent so much of his secret life felt strange, almost like I was intruding on something that wasn't. But then I thought about it and I realized Rachel was right. I needed to understand. I needed to see it for myself. A few weeks later, I found myself standing outside Rachel's modest home. Rachel stood beside me, her arms folded nervously. This is it, she said quietly. This is where he lived when he was here. My throat tight with emotion. I couldn't imagine him here in this life that had been so separate from mine. But as we stepped inside, I saw the traces of him everywhere. The familiar scent of his aftershave lingering, where a photo of her and Tim as children sat on a mantle. Curiosity I had never known about more than I realized. But now I see it. Now I understand why he was always in, and I'm sorry he wasn't there more for you, Rachel shrugged. He wasn't there for any of us the way he should have been. But I guess we'll never really know why. We sat down together on the Warren couch. I'm glad we met, Rachel said after a long silence. Even if it was because of all of this, I'm glad I know you. I smiled, feeling the same. Me too, Inda. There were no easy answers. I had to make peace with the fact that I would never fully understand why he had lived two lives. I would never know how he justified it in his mind, how he could love two families and keep them hidden from each other for so long. Tim never fully warmed up to me, but Rachel and I developed a relationship that we've been thrown together by circumstance. But we chose to stay in each other's lives because we needed to. As for Ron, our relationship was strange but mending. We still had a lot to work through, but we were siblings. Life is messy, families are even messier. But you make choices and you move forward. That's what I had to do and how to live with the consequences. Months later, after things had calmed down, Rachel invited me down to Florida again. She wanted to hold a small memorial for Dad at the beach where he used to take them fishing. I wasn't sure how to feel about it. Part of me still struggled with the idea of celebrating a man who had lived such a deceptive life. Despite everything, I had to find a way to reconcile the man he was with the man I had thought he was, so I agreed. The colors in the sky are breathtaking, golden hues fading into shades of pink and purple. It was quiet except for the gentle sound of the waves crashing against the shore, peaceful. She sat down on the sand between us. Finally, Rachel spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. This was his favorite spot. He used to say there was something magical about fishing at dusk. I guess you like the quiet to come before the night set, and Tim didn't say much, his eyes fixed on the horizon. But he was here. I cleared my throat, unsure of what to say, but feeling like I needed to contribute. He used to take me to a lake near our house when I was a kid. I remember the way he'd sit so patiently waiting for a fish to bite. He always said fishing was less about catching something and more about being present. I didn't get it then, but I think I do now. Rachel smiled, faintly nodding. He told me the same thing. Tim finally spoke. His voice tapped. He told us all the same things. It was about reconciling the pain of having been part of a life that wasn't as exclusive. I'm sorry, I said quietly, looking down at them. I'm sorry for what he did to all of us. Tim shook his head, his Josiel. It's not your fault. Rachel knelt down and opened the box, walking closer to the water. He wasn't perfect, she said, her voice soft, but he was our dad, and I think play he loved. Swallowing a lump in my throat, he did. Rachel scattered ashes into the water. Tim stood beside her. I joined them, the three of us standing side by side. There wasn't a perfect goodbye. There were no grand speeches, no moments of catharsis, or everything suddenly made sense. But it was enough for better or worse, an acknowledgement of the fact that we were all trying to heal each and our own way. After the memorial, Rachel and I stayed in touch. Our relationship wasn't perfect. It was still tinged with the awkwardness of the people who had been thrown together by circumstance. But there was something real there. Tim, on the other hand, remained distant. He hadn't cut us off completely, but he wasn't interested in staying close either. He had his own life, his own way of dealing with the betrayal. I respected that some wounds take longer to heal. We didn't talk as much as we used to. I have forgiven him for the way he had handled things, but trust was something that had to be rebuilt. I think he understood that. We had grown up together. After all, we had shared too much to let this break us completely. One day, as we sat in a small cafe catching up, his expression more serious and usual. I want to apologize again, Audrey, for everything. I handled it badly. I shouldn't have gone behind your back like that. Taking a deep breath before responding, I know you were trying to protect me, but it hurt because I thought we were in this together. He nodded, his eyes full of regret, and I'm sorry, I didn't act like it. I gave him a small smile, feeling the tension between start to dissolve. We'll figure it out, we always do. Sophie grew up as we sat in the backyard watching the sunset. Sophie turned to me with a thoughtful look on her face. Mom, do you think Grandpa really loved both of his families equally? It was a question I had asked myself countless times. I didn't have a clear answer. I think that love is complicated, I said slowly. People are complicated, but I don't think love is something you can measure or compare, even if it wasn't perfect. Sophie nodded, her eyes scanning the sky. Yeah, I guess you're right, as I smiled softly, pulling her close. It is, but we have each other, and that's what matters. She rested her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. My family, complicated, fractured, and messy, was still mine. And in the end, that was enough. I never got the closure wanted from Dad. I never found out why he chose to live the life he did. But I did find something else. Acceptance. Acceptance that life doesn't always give us the answers we're looking for. I found family and unexpected places in Rachel. In the quiet moments with Ronnie, even in Tim's guarded distance. And maybe that was the truest part of it all. We have loved him. And in the end, life is messy. Families are messier, but there is always a way forward. And somehow that was enough. So after hearing the whole story, was I right in how I handled it? Should I have reacted differently when finding out the truth? What are your thoughts?